to the Phantom Zone.
Hello, and we're back. In this week's first episode, Bizarro, our season 7 opens with the second half of the Battle of the Final Phantom. Then, in Kara, guess what? It's Clark's cousin. This is the Smallville Chronicles. Hello, welcome back. I'm Lou Gonzalez, joined as always by Alan Muir.
Feels like it's been quite a while since we've done an episode.
Yeah, it has been. Lots of stuff and real life getting in the way, and just the chaos of everything. Although I did want to ask you, have you watched any of Superman and Lois at all?
Yes, I have. It's my until Stargirl returns. It's like the only Arrowverse show I'm watching.
Yeah, and it's very barely Arrowverse at this point.
Yeah, because they don't even reference Kara.
No, I think they mentioned something once in one of the first episodes, and they mentioned Crisis, and Crisis has been the effect of one of the characters, which is a character I want to talk about because it's one of the few characters that we've only had one live action adaptation of so far in a very bad movie. Didn't even show up in Smallville, which was stunning to me. Because are you caught up? I haven't watched this week's, but I've watched up to last week's episode.
Yeah, I've seen every episode so far.
Okay, so big spoiler warning. What did you think of the reveal of John Henry Irons?
I lost it.
I could not believe that that's where they they were when they were doing stuff. I was like, holy crap! And then they did the hammer, and they did the comic book where he talked about the farther it travels, the harder it hits thing, which was awesome. And that actor is great. That show is just right. Because I think of any show, and I know Flash and Arrow definitely take a lot more of or especially Flash, a lot more of the look of Smallville. But I think this show takes a lot more, especially with the kids. It's very much a spiritual successor. Because I think if you look at Jordan, I actually cannot remember the character's name, Sarah.
Yeah.
I think it's very much a mirror of Clark and Lana, which is funny because it's Clark's kid and Lana's kid. So I think it's kind of a weird spiritual successor in many ways to the Smallville show. And it's all its own Smallville, and they're doing stuff where kryptonite's a big thing and how it's affecting people kind of genetically and stuff like that. And we get a lot of little high school drama with the kids, with Jordan and Jonathan. And it's kind of interesting to see this is it is kind of an Elseworlds, but connected to Smallville in so many ways. This could easily be, it's a very different version of Lois, very different. But I think it's not too far off of Willing's Clark. But I do love all the designs and everything. And that first episode where he had the old kind of Fleischer costume.
Yeah, I think he in next week's episode. They next week's episode is a flashback.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because that's supposed to be his year one costume, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really rad. And I have a feeling that they're going to do. So I haven't watched this week's episode. Something very similar to what we got in. Oh man. It's kind of playing with what Smallville did with the Black Kryptonite with Lex Zod. And they're also kind of doing stuff with what they did. I think it's season 8 with Kandor stuff, or is that season 7?
That's season 9.
Oh my god, season 9. Jesus. Okay. When we get the second Zod, that's when that is, right? And
or this week's episode was heavy into Krypton mythology and stuff.
Yes.
And certain parts were a bit outlandish, but once you watch it and you take a look at a certain New 52 Superman book, you'll see that they're pulling it from that.
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure I read all of New 52 Superman because I think Morrison did a whole chunk of them.
Oh no, I'm talking about the early 2012, 2013
okay.
Superman, the Superman title.
Okay. The one where when they first lost the red trunks and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Interesting. But yeah, I think it's just like it's kind of rad to have that show now. And it reminds me so much of Smallville. Like it's crazy. Obviously it has such a bigger production value of like everything that's on. But it's cool to see that it's back. Yeah, I don't know. There's like so much like kind of comic TV news and all that stuff, but like it'll be interesting to see what happens with Warner Brothers, HBO Max, letting Discovery take over everything. What that means for the future of like DC TV. But I also cannot wait for Stargirl because I think they did a trailer and Jade is in the trailer, which is interesting, and I kind of love it. And I know they said John Wesley Shipp is going to appear as Jay Garrett.
He's going to appear in a flashback that is like the height of the JSA.
Yeah, so like
JSA.
So yeah, and that's how they're so like Stargirl's Earth is like whatever his Earth was from Flash, which is interesting. I think it was like Earth 3 or Earth 4.
No, Stargirl's Earth is Earth 2, and Jay Garrick on like his original was Earth 3.
Okay. Yeah, I know everything is all wonky now because like some of them got erased and some of them aren't erased. All right, but we can start off with like talking about like our episodes this week. So we're opening season 7. I feel like this is like the third time they've done this, which I guess became like a Smallville thing where it's kind of a two-parter, but it's a two-parter over 2 seasons. So this is directly a sequel to the episode that we ended in season 6 with. Because I think this is what they did with like season 1. I don't remember season 2, but I think the last couple seasons as well, where you get like this like cliffhanger at the end, and it's a direct like two-parter basically.
Season 3.
Yeah, season 3 also did it. Yeah, I feel like it's something they did a lot. I don't think it's a bad idea.
But too much of a certain thing will get tired. Get tiresome.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think this is where I feel like we're on our downhill slope of the series in many ways, even though we have like 4 full seasons left. Like this is where we start to see the show kind of not know what to do with itself in many ways. And isn't this is the last season with Lana, right?
This is the last full season of Kristen Crook, Rosenbaum, and Glover.
Yes, because I think Rosenbaum is in like a couple episodes of season 8.
No, he's not. It's actually
he's not. It's the bullshit thing that they did. I remember.
Yeah, where they show him, but they don't show his face.
Yeah, it's not him. Yeah, it's another guy, and then Glover kind of bounces in and out for the rest of the series, like randomly. So yeah, this is kind of when like stuff gets real wonky because yeah, we're gonna end up from being like our entire cast of like the original season is gone except for Welling and
Allison Mack.
Allison Mack, yeah. Which her stuff gets real wonky as we go forward. Which kind of start where we are. So we have the fight between Clark and Bizarro, and the dam is broken, so it's all flooding. We go inside the dam. Lois is holding Chloe's body because, as we remember, Chloe cried and that resurrected Lois. So now Chloe's quote dead. And Lex is locked in a cop car on the bridge, but the bridge is starting to crumble and it sweeps him downstream. And then Clark and Bizarro are fighting. They end up in the woods. And he tries to go back in the dam to help them, but Bizarro attacks him. Clark punches him away. We keep cutting back to this father and son fishing. And then the dad tells the kid to run, but he falls and hits his head and he goes unconscious. But like before everything like goes to hell, like Clark goes in and saves them with the super speed and uses his heat vision to vaporize the water, which is actually like a really great way to use his heat vision, although it would like boil everything to death that was in the water.
Yeah.
But the kid sees Clark, which is interesting. So then Lex is now underwater and he's trying to get out of the car before he drowns. And he sees a young woman by his window. It looks like an angel. And then he wakes up on the shore and the woman's standing over him, and then she flies away, foreshadowing. So Bizarro's been impaled on an electrical pylon by the force of Clark's punch, but he gets himself out. And somebody sees him, but Bizarro kills that dude. And then he goes to the
with his heat vision.
Yeah. Which is interesting because usually they have, I thought that they did it in the show, but maybe it was something different because they usually have reverse powers.
Yeah,
So
like his freeze, ice beams, and
heat breath.
Heat breath, yeah.
Yeah. Which I always love because then it's like, oh, he's just got like really hot stink breath. But Bizarro goes to the farm because he's the reverse of Clark, where sunlight hurts him and kryptonite heals him. So he goes to get the kryptonite. Clark goes back. He's looking for Lionel. Lionel's unconscious on the riverbed. A trench coat guy pulls up and finds him and pulls him away.
Oh yeah, the story arc, there's sort of mini story arc that happens with Lionel in the first, like when we get back to him, is yeah, it's not the best, but he made it work.
So yeah, and Lois is trying to get Chloe to safety, and she sees a door with green glowing light. So she goes up to it and sees the other side. Is basically a ton of water and dead bodies. She turns around and sees like the little boy that was Bizarro's other host crying for help. It's like everything's going to be okay, but kind of knowing it's not going to be. So Chloe's calling for help, but then Clark shows up, and then he sees her and he sees that Chloe's like messed up. So then he's kind of rescuing. We go back to Lex is in his office, and his assistant says that the helicopter is ready to take him out of the country, and Lex is just like defeated. And he believes that he was saved by an angel, but he's upset about Lana. And then he's playing with the wedding ring. And then he says to his assistant he's going to turn himself in. Because I believe our season finale was when the limo blew up.
No, it was Lionel was going after Lana, trying to get her to do something. Lana she was acting erratic. She got in a car and it blew up.
Yeah, okay. It wasn't okay, it was just a car. I knew there was a car explosion because, small.
Yeah.
So at the medical center, they have Chloe there, and Clark and Lois are like trying to waiting and freaking out. And Lois is like, I was stabbed and then I was healed. And when I woke up, Chloe was just next to me unconscious. And Clark's like, oh shit. Like he knew that Chloe had a meteor power, but they never knew what it was. And apparently she has, tears of healing. Like she cries Phoenix Downs, but at the cost of her own life. It's a very odd power that never gets addressed again. It's just like a one-time use kind of a thing. So Lois asks Clark to stay with Chloe so she can check out the Luthor mansion. At the mansion, she runs into Bizarro thinking it's Clark, but he's flirting with her and, all that, and it's freaking her out. And he feels her up, and then Bizarro, she slaps Bizarro, and Lois leaves, and she's super confused. The ER team attempts to revive Chloe, but they pronounce her dead. Shortly after, Chloe wakes up to find herself in a morgue drawer, scared and confused. As she starts to bang and yell, Clark is trying to find out Chloe's status, and they say she didn't make it, which they would have told them before they moved her to the morgue at this point. I also think it's I don't think does her dad ever show back up in the show?
No.
Yeah, he's just gone. So then Clark is the closest thing to family she has. So Clark's freaking out. But he turns on his super hearing and he hears that Chloe's yelling, and he finds her. And Chloe's like, I don't know what happened. And she sees her death certificate and she's freaking out. And then she sees that there's one for Lana as well, and she's just distraught. So Lex is listening to his lawyer, and it's him and Lana fighting about the relationship with Clark just before she left. And Lex is what are they going to find when they repair the dam? Where's his dad? And then Bizarro breaks in, kills his lawyer, and Lex is oh shit, the Phantom took over Clark. But Bizarro's no, he's just a copy that he used And he's like, I need more meteor rocks. So at this point, Lex knows. Bizarro basically tells him, no, I'm not inhabiting Clark. I did something to look like Clark. But kind of doesn't tell him that the any Kryptonian stuff, just like that he needs meteor rocks.
Yeah, all he says is just a couple cells.
Mm-hmm. So Chloe goes back to the Talon and she watches the video, like a video of her and Lana. She gives Clark a hug, and Clark's like, I'm not really ready to mourn yet. There's other shit at hand. Like, I have to find Bizarro. So Bizarro likes meteor rocks. I hate meteor rocks. And it's like, oh, that means he's going to look for more. And he's like, oh shit, Lex had a bunch at the dam. He's like, but I don't know how I'm going to beat this guy because all of his power, like, he's all my powers, but none of my weaknesses. He's like Blade, and I'm the vampire. And then we have the Martian Manhunter shows up in the loft, and he's like, and he's just like, you did what Jor-El didn't want. You let your evil counterpart like have your powers. But Clark's like, yeah, but I'm proud that I care for people, and I consider that my strength. And the Martian Manhunter's like, their other strength might help him defeat Bizarro. Clark's like, oh yeah, I get my power from the yellow sun. So if Bizarro gets weakened by kryptonite, maybe he gets weakened by the sun, which they've been hinting at because every time his face is in the sun is when he gets the Bizarro effect.
Yeah, and there are two separate like scenes or close-ups that are two parallel shots that explain this better.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they're pulling from like the Super Friends design, like the old cartoon, which I don't mind. It's actually like visually kind of interesting as opposed to just like grayed out. And also kind of like not like a dumb Bizarro. Like dumb Bizarro is really goofy to me.
Yeah, with this it's
and Supergirl did an interesting take on it because they combined like Bizarro and Red Sun into like one character for her, which I think also worked very well.
The thing I did like though about this version of Bizarro, it's basically douchebag Clark, and with a slightly modulated voice, which that effect alone sold me on it.
Yeah, he's kind of what is it, Cal?
Yeah,
he's kind of like Red Ring Clark with like that like cool modulation. It's very simple, but I think it's effective. Like because I think it also makes it more interesting that he doesn't specifically visually stand out from Clark. And compared to a lot of the other Kryptonian stuff we'll get later on, he's interesting. And it's kind of sad that he doesn't stay around for too long. He's only really in like 2 episodes.
Yeah, but he comes back.
Mm-hmm. So Lex takes Bizarro to the dam. He pulls a big gun on him, but Bizarro's just like bot and just like slaps him away. And then Bizarro absorbs all the.
There's actually a really great scene where, or there's this part that's left out on this recap. He has like Bizarro gives Lex the an ultimatum like, you can kill me, or you can finally solve the mystery that is Clark Kent, which was just a killer line.
Mm-hmm. And at this point, Lex is like more worried about his own life, so that's when he tries to kill Bizarro. They slaps him across the room. Then Bizarro absorbs all the kryptonite, which makes it so just kind of a dumb move. He should have left a little, because then when Clark arrives, like there's none of the kryptonite radiation to affect him. But he's still like very powerful, so he slaps Clark away. But under like Clark lands, and there's like a hole in the ceiling, so the sunlight's hitting him. Bizarro thinks he's won. He starts to leave, but the sunlight heals Clark, and he gets up, which is kind of a tweak on how his powers work. Like they shouldn't work that quickly. And then Bizarro comes towards Clark right into the sunlight, and then we see the face change. Clark takes the punch and is like, oh, and then uppercuts him like Hadoukens him up into the sky, and Martian Manhunter flies him away. Oh yeah, I remember when he comes back. I thought that was here, but it's not. The Lana thing, right?
Yeah, it's a really great twist.
Yeah, he's really good in that episode. Okay, yeah. So for now, that's kind of the end of Bizarro. So at the Kent farm, Clark's listening to the radio report of Lana's death, and then Chloe arrives. And he's like, I don't really know what the difference is between me and Bizarro. And he's like, when I learned that Lana died, I was going to go kill Lex. And Chloe's like, no, but your human side, and your reluctance, that's what makes you different. And Clark's like, you want to talk about what happened with you? And she's like, no. Then Lois comes in and she says, like, she forgives him for hitting on her. And Clark is like, I don't know what's going on. She's like, oh, you must have gone crazy from the grief. And she hugs him and expresses her condolences. He's like, if you ever try that again, I'll tear your head off. And then we have the Martian Manhunter's like, telling Clark that he's proud of him. And Clark's wondering if it's all worth it. And like losing Lana made him realize that like, everyone that he loves will like, he'll outlive all of them. And then we cut to Chloe's destroying the death certificate. Lex is in jail looking at a photograph of him and Lana. And then we cut to Shanghai. And we have Lana, and we have a woman in a blonde wig, and then she goes into a house and she looks up at the moon and takes off a wig, and it's Lana. She's alive. And then we cut to a mysterious woman that saved Lex is standing on top of the Smallville water tower in a blue shirt and a red jacket. All like, what do you call that when you show like your midriff? Like, I don't know. She's very 90s fashion. Or like not 90s, like early 2000s. It reminds me of like Josie and the Pussycats.
Yeah.
But she puts on a bracelet and then flies away. Yeah, I think this is a good opener. A lot happens in this opener. You have like the conclusion of the Bizarro. Lex is in jail. Chloe's dead and comes back to life. You have like, the showing up of the mysterious woman, which is literally the next episode we'll get into. But like, I think it's a pretty good season opener.
There's a scene with Chloe and Clark where Chloe's they basically just write this line for Chloe as like the point of view of the audience, where she's like, you really have to do something about these, like, you really have to learn to fly, since seemingly every villain you faced has that ability. And the next episode, it's another case of that.
Yep. So the other big things we have, so this is the first season where Annette O'Toole is not in the opening credits. This is also the first appearance of Laura Vandervoort, who will be playing Kara Kent. I think she's in the opening credits as well. Okay, and this is the fourth time they've done where the season finale goes directly into the season opener.
And I think they do it again with season 8 into 9 and 9 into 10.
Yep. So I do think this is a pretty good opener. This is probably one of the better episodes of the season. I'm gonna do a quick look through the season real quick, but like, yeah, I think this is pretty well done. And again, I like this Bizarro, like, as a character, compared to what they do with some of the other characters and some of the other episodes.
Also, this was supposed to be originally this was planned as the final season.
Yes, which makes sense because like everybody leaving and stuff like that, but then it's making too much money. But yeah, so our second episode, Kara, which if you know anything about Superman comics, like is his cousin, Supergirl, and that's who the blonde lady is that we see. So Laura Vandervoort's like on and off the show for like the final several seasons.
Yeah.
Because she's like in the beginning of this, and then I don't think she shows back up until season 8, right?
Yeah, she's the main character. What they ended up doing, like with seasons 8, 9, and 10, is they would just have like instead of having like what they do with the Flash Arrow, where they don't have the big bad in every episode, or like a extra person, like an extra hero.
Mm-hmm.
Season 7. Laura Vandervoort is a regular cast member. Season 8, Sam Witwer is a main cast member. Season 9, Callum Blue, I think his name is regular cast member. And then there's just like there's only four build cast members, like 4 regulars for season 10.
Yeah, which makes sense. It's Clark, Lois, Chloe, and Oliver. Is he the 4th regular?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be. He's like the only other big name that's like, or character that's in a lot of the season. Yeah. which is like, and this is also the season as we go through, like, we get a lot more. We started with like the pseudo Justice League stuff. We get a lot more as we go on. But this is like a season where we get a lot of kind of the build of the like more Kryptonian mythos of like what the hell happened and like the workings and stuff like that, which come up in our second episode. So episode is named Kara. So Clark and Lois are checking out the area where the dam was from the previous episodes. They're trying to figure out what the hell Lex was up to. And she's like, Clark, you don't have to stay here long. And Clark says that, I'm just keeping you out of trouble. He's like, and also I'm going to leave Smallville and head up north, which obviously that means he's going to the fortress, but she doesn't know that. But she's upset. But then they find a spaceship. And Clark goes to go towards it, but then there is kryptonite around it, so he backs off. And Clark's like, oh shit, it's a Kryptonian ship. So he's like, oh, I don't think that's a spaceship. It must be some other thing, like a boat or something, like a sub or I don't know. And Lois is like, bullshit. And then so she takes a picture of the phone, but then she gets like launched through the air and lands by where like Clark is. And it's our mysterious woman. So she crushes the phone and then runs at Clark and they hit each other. And she defeats Clark and throws him hundreds of feet into the woods. And she flies over to Clark and tells him to leave. And then she zooms up into the atmosphere and she looks in her hand at a crystal that shows a picture of a baby. And she flies back down towards the surface, a baby that if you watch the show, you'll recognize. And so then we pop over to the Talon and Chloe's looking over meteor-infected humans, and Clark and Lois show up, and he's still trying to convince Lois it wasn't a spaceship, but not having any luck. He's like, oh, maybe it was a school prop. And Lois like, props don't knock people unconscious. Clark's like, no, you just fell in the mud and you hit your head on a rock, and you're like filling in the gaps. And Lois is going to go to her boss, the Inquisitor, when she goes to change. Clark tells Chloe everything he saw, including the blonde Kryptonian. And that, she's as strong as him, plus she can fly. And Chloe's like, tells Lois that she should go to a hospital to look at her bruises. This will give Clark time to find the other girl.
There's another line where she just says, what's with you Kryptonians? Are you the only good one?
So then we cut to Lex's in prison, and they're going to release him because they're saying disgruntled employees who really killed Lana. And Lex is like, yeah, that didn't do it. I'm pretty sure Lana's not even dead. So then Clark goes back to the dam. The ship is gone. It's been roped off. There are two dead park rangers. Or he sees two dead park rangers where the cops tell him to leave. And he's like, oh shit, Kryptonian girl's responsible. So at the planet, the lazy issue says Lionel Luthor is missing, presumed dead after the dam. Lex confronts Chloe. And she's like, why are you coming to me? Like, but I'm not surprised you're out of jail. And he's like, I think Lana's alive, and I think you know what her plans are. And Chloe's like, she's not alive. Get the hell away from me. He killed my friend. And Clark shows up and tells Chloe about the park rangers and the ship. And Chloe says that there have been 911 reports of a woman appearing at preschools and scaring children. And she gives Clark the last location. Which this is kind of like a funny concept, but like is kind of what would happen.
Yeah.
So at the preschool, we see the woman is literally picking up children and asking them their names. Clark confronts her, super speeds with her down the road until they're alone. It's like, why are you killing people? She's like, I ain't killing nobody. She goes to fly away, but Clark grabs her ankles and body slams her. And he sees the House of L symbol on her wrist cuff. And he helps her and asks what she's doing here on Earth. Tells him she's searching for a young boy named Kal-El, and Clark's like, oh shit, I'm Kal-El. So Lois goes to the planet to meet Chloe. She's written about the ship, and she wants Chloe to show it to her editor, which is like goofy. Chloe's trying to both be like, you shouldn't show this because it's going to blow up Clark's situation. Also, it's going to make you seem crazy and doesn't want it to ruin Lois's career. and that the planet just hired a new editor-in-chief, Grant Gabriel from the Star City Post. Which is interesting. I didn't remember them saying Star City, which is obviously where Green Arrow is from. And this character will be sort of important for a little while, and is like this third time of the really kind of goofy Luther subplot stuff. I feel like this is the third or fourth time it comes up, and it comes up at least two other times after this. So Grant appears, and Chloe introduces herself, and he knows a lot about her, and he brushes Chloe off, and he asks Lois about her story. He's like, I'll publish it, but I want, I'm trying to take the paper in a new direction. And now, which is funny, seeing how, Chloe was the wall of weird, but now she's, the more conservative reporter. And so she's, frustrated that now she's not the one who's, getting the attention. So when we cut back, Clark brings Kara to his house. She's like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. Kal-El was a baby, and I was tasked to watch over him, and her shit, we left at the same time, right after you. And Clark's like, well, maybe your ship crashed in the reservoir in the meteor shower, but you didn't get opened up until the dam broke and opened up your ship. So you've just been there suspended in animation for 18 years. And Kara's like, oh shit. Well, my dad was your dad's brother, so we're cousins. Ta-da. And Clark's like, well, then why did Jor-El never mention Zor-El? And Carl's like, well, the House of El was dysfunctional. Which it is kind of interesting they do all this, because I feel like that has been a thing in the comics for forever, since they made all these other characters that Jor-El and Zor-El never get along ever.
Yeah, it reminds me of the when Rebirth got announced. They made Zor-El Cyborg Superman.
Yeah, I don't like that story. I get it, but it's real weird. Isn't there implications that Kara isn't Kara, that she's a clone he made?
Yeah, something like that.
So she explains that I need to get my ship back, but the green rocks weaken me, and he's like, yeah, they're radioactive, they're from our home planet Krypton. And Kara's confused, and Clark's like, oh shit, you don't know, Krypton exploded and everybody's dead. And Kara's like, oh, I'm really upset, so we need to find her ship. And Clark's like, I'm pretty sure it's been taken, and that if the humans attempt to open it, it's going to self-destruct and be like a nuke, and she's the only one to stop it. So we cut to, hey, guess who has the ship? It's the government, and they're trying to open it. But something goes wrong, and obviously, exactly what Kara said is going to happen. So Lois goes to Grant's office, the new editor, and tells her that Chloe should write the story since she is she's more talented. And Grant's like, yeah, well, Chloe's kind of lost her mojo, and has been content with writing mundane news. And Lois is kind of realizing that Chloe's feelings mean a lot to her, and Grant's like, well, kind of scoffs at it, and Lois refuses the job, and he goes out saying she's using her cover to write the story. And then Lois is like, look, that the government moved, I have these satellite images that they moved something to Granville. And Grant's like, you have all the means to be a great reporter, or has been with regrets. And that kind of leaves it at that. So I guess the idea is Grant is trying to make, I think this is playing on the story that the Daily Planet, which they do all the time, is out of touch. And they bring in somebody to shake it up, because I feel we don't get, until Perry returns way late in the series, we really don't get a major editor them doing stuff.
The closest is, I think, season 8 or 9, when Tess Mercer buys, or Luther Corp buys the planet.
Oh, I thought they owned them already at this point, but I guess not.
No, but then again, this is also the same period where in the show where Oliver was running Luther Corp as well, because Lex had been, and I'll save that for later episodes.
So we cut back to Lex and one of his employees we tracked down Lana. She's in Shanghai. We used voice recognition software on the telephone, and Lex is going to go fly off and find her. Clark takes care to see Chloe at the Daily Planet, and Kara's like annoyed at the slowness of humanity's ancient technology. She just wants to find her ship. It'd be a lot easier if we could both fly. And then she's like, Clark, why can't you fly? And he's like, I don't know. Which is pretty much the answer we get for the entire series. Like, I don't know why I can't fly. Whenever I get mind controlled, I can fly, but I can't do it.
Up until the final, 20 minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes of the finale, or the series finale, no flying.
I understand the idea of no flying, but, like, they never come up with a good reason why he doesn't. He just doesn't.
I mean, the 200th episode, they actually tied they eventually say that, like
something he's not accepting his Kryptonianism, like something like that.
Kara actually says, like, this is not your fight, referring to the big bad of season 10, and saying, like, you've been on Earth all this time and you haven't even managed to fly yet. Yeah,
it's like, I don't know. I wish they would have given a more definitive kind of like explanation, and we really don't ever get a good one. So Chloe hasn't been able to find anything. Oh, and Kara also says that like Kryptonian girls mature faster, so she's like, that's implying it. So the only things they can find out is that AM, FM radio signals in Granville are being disrupted. Kara's like, oh, puny humans won't help. Clark defends Chloe, and he thinks the ship is responsible for the disrupted frequencies. And Kara's like, oh, maybe it's the alarms because the self-destruct has been initiated. Clark's like, all right, I have an idea. He takes Kara to the rooftop and informs her that like they have super hearing, and he teaches her how to use it. And she's able to hear the signal and head for the ship. So when they get there, Lois is already there. She snuck by the roadblocks. She goes into the abandoned building where the ship is, and when she touches the glyphs, she's hit by a force of energy and is blown back and is unconscious. So this is the second time this episode she's been knocked out.
Yeah.
So Clark and Kara arrive. Clark goes to Lois, and Kara stops the explosion with her body. But in her confusion, the ship disappears. And thus we go to China. Lex shows up in the apartment, but Lana's waiting, and she points a gun at him. And it's like, oh, I deliberately led you here. And he's like, I know why you faked your own death. You wanted to ruin my life. It's like, your plan is brilliant. And he says that, like, the body that she used was a clone of hers that Lex had created for Project Ares, but it was never brought to life. And he's like, you stole the clone and blew it up so that like it would definitely pass like DNA tests. And it's like, I deserve to die for what I did to you. And he's like, I'm not going to resist you. Well, I can't do it. So he takes the gun and tells her to return to Smallville if she wishes, and he will not bother her. As he leaves, he puts the gun down by the door, and Lana's basically going to break down, like, and cry. So it's interesting. This is kind of the beginning of the, I don't know what you want to call it, the dark path Lana goes down.
The hardening of her character.
Yeah, the hardening and like the deconstruction of like the cheerful kind of Lana. I don't know if she was ever cheerful, but the kind of like soft. Yeah, like this is her hardening and getting darker. So Lois complains to Chloe that she didn't get much feedback on her story. Grant tells her he likes the story, but he is not going to print it since he didn't get photos of it. And it's like, oh, you should always carry a backup camera. I still like your writing, though. And he's like, I want to hire you at the Daily Planet, and gives her a desk right across from Chloe. And he's like, maybe you'll reignite Chloe's passion and the flame that she let out. And Chloe's like kind of pissed about it. But it does good to give a good job of getting all our characters back kind of in one main place at the planet now, which is appropriate.
Okay, I just have something to just.
Mm-hmm.
Grant Gabriel calls the area where they're at the basement. Later down the line, the same set is used for like when Clark and Lois
like
are.
Like the bullpen.
Yeah,
yeah, because it's supposed to be like Chloe has never left like the hole that she was in, from when she first started working, and then like Jimmy was there. Like she's never left that area. They just like, oh, it's now up here now.
Yeah.
So we go to the farm. Kara's like upset. Clark is like, trying to console her. She's like, I still can't believe it. We were so advanced. And Clark says, it doesn't matter. Like, evil exists in all culture, but you still have one person in your family left. He asked her to tell, like, he's like, can you tell me about like our family? And she tells him about her, like his mom, Laura. And he's like, you could stay here for as long as you want. And Kara's grateful. But she's like, the crystal that was in the ship, in her ship, and the only a Kryptonian can destroy the crystal, so it would have survived the explosion. And then we go to DC, and it's revealed that some scientists are testing the ship. Testing the ship has obtained a crystal, and they're delivering it to the U.S. Department of Domestic Security, which is like a weird. I don't think there's anything as it would be Homeland Security.
Yeah. But
DHS.
considering all the events that have happened in Smallville, and then like even Metropolis with the season 5 finale.
Yeah, like Black Friday or Black Thursday, whatever they call it.
Yeah, that probably led to this branch being created.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it makes total sense when we get like a year or two down the line and we get Checkmate. Like, they totally make sense for them to exist.
And the Suicide Squad.
Yep. So we got to the fortress, and Clark is asking questions of Jor-El about Kara. Basically, like the last time he met a Kryptonian and Kara, Jor-El was responsible, which was the fake Kara.
Yeah,
And
the one back in season 3.
yeah, and Jor-El's like, no, I didn't have anything to do with this new Kara. And he's like, she says she's Jor-El's daughter, and Clark is upset that you never told me about my uncle and my cousin. And Jor-El's like, yeah, I don't trust her because I didn't trust my brother. And Clark's like, she's a kid, like she didn't do anything. And Jor-El's like, you're relying too much on your human emotions. And it's like, well, they're part of me no matter whether you like it or not. And Clark changes the subject to go back to his training. And he's like, your training starts with watching over Kara because she posed a greater threat than you believe. And then we cut to the mansion where Lex is looking at a picture that is supposed to be Kara, but it's
artist interpretation.
Yeah. It's a very nice picture, but it looks nothing like Vandervoort. And that is where we end. So, I don't know. I think it was smart of them to bring in Kara, but it causes the same issue that we saw in the Flash TV show, although the Flash TV show handled it way, way worse, is when you add other characters with the same power, it kind of makes your lead character less interesting. And I think that's why she doesn't really stick around as a character for the show for that long.
I don't know if you remember Michael Cassidy's role in a certain film. The actor who plays Grant Gabriel.
Oh, no, I don't.
He played Jimmy Olsen in Batman v Superman.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that he was in that. That's right. Because he gets shot in the face.
Yeah, it's like it was the shortest amount of screen time for, like, Jimmy Olsen should be treated better.
Yeah, I think that had to do with all of the rewrites, because it was originally supposed to be,
Eisenberg.
Eisenberg, and Cranston was going to be Lex, and then Cranston backed out to do Power Rangers, I think.
From the way Zack Snyder says, tells it, is like that. It was like he wanted to do like a twist on the character, and instead have Eisenberg play Lex.
Yeah, I think that's a little retconning. I don't know. This episode's fine. Like, I think this episode is a lot more what we get for the season. Going forward, it's very fine. So, I don't know. Our next ones we have Fierce, which is evil pageant girls, and what's the one after that? Cure, which is what everything does, like a cure for meteor freaks.
Clark. No. They found a body. They found your body.
It wasn't me. I'm real, Clark. I was never supposed to come back.
She stole $10 million from me.
You know I'd never hide anything from you.
Smallville. Tonight starting at 7 on Wisconsin CW.
How can I help you?
I want to be cured.
Thursday. A medical genius
You don't know anything about this doctor.
He can give me a chance at a normal life.
with a treatment that's a real killer.
He's murdering his patients one by one.
What are you doing? Clark!
Smallville, followed by Supernatural. All new episodes this Thursday starting at 8/7 Central on the CW.
I don't know. Like, it's definitely, this is a season I don't remember a lot of because,
So, the character, Dean Cain plays the main character, like the villain of the 4th episode, and it's a strongly.
oh yeah, he's
He-
playing not Vandal Savage, but pretty much Vandal Savage.
Yeah,
Yeah, which Dean Cain no good, Dean Cain bad. There are some fun things that they bring back because we also get like the Warrior Angel thing that comes back, and I do like the Zor-El stuff and the return of Bizarro, but then we get the terrible Pete Ross return, which I hate.
there's also, if I'm not mistaken, Brainiac returns this season.
Yes. So there's some goofy. Yeah, this is the season. Yeah, I don't know. There's a bunch of goofy stuff, and then we get into Veritas, and there's also some fillers in this show. But we also get Helen Slater episode, which is great.
Yeah,
Who was Supergirl in the movie Supergirl. So that just about does it for us. And drop the trailers in here. So yeah, where can everybody find your other stuff, Al?
you check or keep it tuned to VGU.tv. We have E3 content that we're working on, or post E3 content. Subscribe to the VGU.tv podcast or VGU TV podcast feed and the Hypertime to podcast feed. And probably by the next time we do an episode, or in a few weeks, I'll announce something that I've been wanting to announce for a while.
Yep. And then you can catch all the stuff I'm doing, the And Out Comics and the watch parties. We just finished up the canon movie trilogy where we watched our kind of transition movie, which was Bloodsport, and we watched Superman 4, which was horrendous, although better than He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, which we just watched, which was terrible. I think we're going to do a Hellfire Gala wrap-up thing and some comics soon. So yeah, we'll catch you guys next time. I'm Lou Gonzalez.
And I'm Alan Muir, as podcast stands for Truth, Justice, and the American Way.